And just to be clear on one thing, with respect to the 9,000 plus ballots representing the undervotes that no human eyes have ever looked at, those have not been touched by anybody, to the best of your knowledge. Not supervisors, personnel, not canvassing board. They haven't been physically touched by anyone, right?
Well,
if you know, if you don't know, say you don't know.
Well, one of the things that troubles me is your 9,000...
If you know, say you know. If you don't say anything.
I don't know.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
That's it, Your Honor. I have another question.
Well, I had one question, if I may. You were in this building, where they just put your picture up on there.
Yes.
And you were on the what, on the floor clapping?
I was sitting down, actually just trying to get out of the way because I was going to be perhaps the next observer. Go into the back room.
What were you clapping for?
Well, apparently Republicans aren't very good at clapping in unison, so I was trying to at least...
Well, what was everybody clapping for? What was the reason?
Well, there was just some, if you will, I don't want to call it chanting, but that would probably be as close as there would be to some remarks that were going on at that time.
What were you chanting?
The one that comes to my mind is that as the press was being kept out of the area or not going in, it would be let the press in, kind of a...
Okay. Did you break in that building?
Oh, absolutely not. We were all there, and we knew everybody, and everybody knew us. We'd worked together for the last 2 days, 12 hours a day.
This was a group of the observers that were already in there?
Sure.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Do either of you have any questions concerning any matter I may have inquired about?
I do have one question.
All right.
Mr. Spargo, did you riot at any time on November 22nd or at any time when you were in Miami in the month of November?
Absolutely not. It was, nor did anybody tell us to be quiet or leave. We were generally a group of lawyers who were, as you can see on the picture, sitting around, half waiting. Many were disappointed that they couldn't go in and observe the process because it had been very open for the last 2 days. And I think there was, I don't want to call it frustration, but there was disappointment, I think, that they couldn't go back and see because of the narrow confines of the tabulation room in the back corner where it was just utterly secluded from any public, real public viewing.
Were you making a First Amendment demonstration, I guess I would call it?
It's a lovely thought. I'm not sure that my mind was quite elevated to the First Amendment, but it was... no.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, if I can have a follow-up question. Were you present that morning when someone stated before the canvassing board, page 50, line 17?
This is Gene Randall in Washington. With me is Ken Gross, our elections expert. Ken is the former head of enforcement at the Federal Election Commission. And Ken, you expressed some surprise that Thomas Spargo showed up here as a Bush camp witness. Why?
Well, Tom Spargo is actually a very well-known lawyer in New York, and he is respected as a Republican lawyer. However, there was this case that was referred to that caused a disruption in the proceedings. It relates back to a 1986 case involving contributions that were made in the name of another, where contributions were reimbursed. And I don't recall of Mr. Spargo's involvement there, claiming apparently that he claimed the Fifth Amendment during those proceedings. I don't recall what role he had, if any, specifically, but that's the case they're referring to. And that, since he's so well known, that was a highly publicized case. I remember the case in Poughkeepsie, and you know, they were, by bringing him on as a witness was possibly subjecting him to that disruption, and that's exactly what happened.
Additional questions for Mr. Spargo on the stand.
Who said what? If somebody said something, bring them in.
Okay, Your Honor. Well, I would just, and I won't even read it, I would just direct Your Honor's attention
to page 51. I don't need to have that any direction where I need to read it. I'll read the transcripts if it's in the transcript.
Okay, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
May the witness stand down without objection. Call the next witness.
Your Honor, Governor Bush and Secretary Cheney called to the witness stand Mark Lampkin.
Is this the last witness, fourth witness?
Your Honor, I wanted to correct myself. I misspoke. We have cut back to, this is our penultimate witness. We'll have one more witness after this, and then we'll be done with our presentation of live evidence.
So we can see some light at the end of the tunnel, perhaps. All right, let's proceed. Call the next witness.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I think we should mark this for identification since it was used in the examination. And
You wish to submit that as an
yes,
exhibit?
I think we need to do that. Yes,
All
sir.
right, what number would be, Mr.
They've marked it as plaintiff's exhibit 60.
All right, let it be so marked.
And we move it.
All right, without objection.
I think it's irrelevant, but I don't object.
Well, let the record reflect the objection. Overruled. Let it in. All right. Would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated, sir.
Would you please state your name, sir?
It's Mark S. Lampkin, Lampkin.
Mr. Lampkin, where do you live?
Right now in the Washington, D.C. area.
Where were you born?
In New York, actually. New York, but grew up in Providence, Rhode Island.
All right, sir. What is your education, Mr. Lampkin?
Have an undergraduate degree from Holy Cross College in Worcester, Massachusetts. Law degree from Boston College Law School, obviously in Boston, Massachusetts.
Are you a registered Republican?
Yes, sir.
Have you worked in the Bush-Cheney campaign?
Yes, sir.
Did you have occasion on November 29 to be in Miami-Dade County?
Yes, sir.
What were you doing there?
I was a Republican observer at the Supervisor of Elections office as they were preparing to transport, under Judge Saul's order, the so-called undervotes to Tallahassee.
All right. Pardon me, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. Lampkin, I want to put in front of you Exhibit 62, and then I'm going to also hand you Exhibit 63. These are defendant's exhibits 62 and 63. Your Honor, if the court will indulge me, I'd like to hand them up to you at this point.
For the clerk.
Really for you, because they've not yet been offered, and the witness will testify about it.
I won't look at them for the witness.
All right, sir. Sorry, Your Honor. You got 2 copies? That's all I got. Yeah, 2 copies. Mr. Lampkin, how long were you at the canvassing board of Dade County on November 29th?
From approximately 9 a.m. Until I probably physically didn't leave the building till close to 7 p.m. that evening.
All right. And while you were there, did you have occasion to meet with Miami-Dade County officials involved in the elections process?
Yes, sir.
Did you, for example, meet with Supervisor David Leahy?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your purpose in being there?
Well, if you will, the morning was a little chaotic because we didn't know what was going on, and so I thought it was best that I go down to the courthouse, the supervisor's office, to see how they were going to proceed with the transportation of the ballots. So I got there around 9 a.m. And I was somewhat surprised to see that they had already started the process of started the process of transporting, and I was immediately, I approached David to kind of get a sense of what they were going to do throughout the day, how he was going to proceed, what was exactly going on, because that was the first day I had been in Miami.
Well, let me stop you there. You said you approached David. I'm not sure perhaps others know who that is. Is that David Leahy?
Yes, sir. David Leahy, the Supervisor of Elections.
For Dade County?
Yes, sir.
All right. During the course of the day, while you were there, watching the ballots being boxed up to come to Tallahassee, to this court, Did you receive from any Miami-Dade County official Defendant's Exhibit 62?
62, okay. Yes, I did.
The same question with respect to Defendant's Exhibit 63.
Yes, I did.
In fact, who did you get Defendant's Exhibit 62 from?
I received that from Mr. Leahy.
And who did you get Defendant's Exhibit 63 from?
From Mr. Leahy.
Were you the only person that Mr. Leahy shared these with, or did you observe him giving them to anyone else?
No, we had struck an agreement in the morning, Mr. Leahy and I, that I had requested copies of these documents as they were prepared, and he gave them both to me and the Democratic observers, plural, and on occasion someone in my stead if I happened to be out of the room.
Without testifying about the substance of Defendant 62, that is, what it reflects as a matter of substance, can you describe just very generally for the record what Defendant's Exhibit 62 is?
This is a compilation of sheets that were at the 4 hand tabulation tables that were in the room where the undervote segregation process was being recorded by county employees throughout the day. There was a set of this, I believe this is the November 8th canvass report. There was a set of these at each one of the 4 stations where county employees were counting out manually the number of undervotes by precinct throughout the day.
Was this a document that was marked on, to your knowledge, on November 29 by county officials?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we offer Defendant's Exhibit 62.
Without objection, to be marked and received in evidence.
Now, Mr. Lampkin, I want to turn to Defendant's 63. Again, without getting into the substance, because I'm going to ask about both of these exhibits in a few minutes, but for right now, just generally, what is Defendant's Exhibit 63 that Mr. Leahy gave you?
I observed Mr. Leahy, and I believe it's his deputy, Ivy Corman, preparing this sheet, or these sheets, I should say, at the end of the day, as they were attempting to ascertain, they were transferring the data from the Exhibit 62 to Exhibit 63 as a record of what the actual or undervote counts were in various precincts.
As it stood on November 29?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we offer Defendant's Exhibit 63.
No objection.
Without objection, let it be so marked and received in evidence. Defendant number 63.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's go back now. We'll come back and talk about Defendant's Exhibit 62 and 63 as time goes along. But what I would like to do first is to see if you can describe for us what you observed with respect to what was going on with the ballots. 625,000 ballots on November 29. Could you tell us?
Yes, sir. As I said, I arrived around 9 a.m., give or take a few minutes, into what I guess is described as the counting room. And there was at that point, there were 8 county employees seated at 4 tables, sort of in the very first row, if you will, of the room, directly in front of the door. And they had just begun the process whereby Mr. Leahy, and again, I believe she's his